dog just got hit by a truck. I find this out as I'm walking back from work, and I have to go home to my one-bedroom apartment, just myself, turn on the lights, and sit myself down and comfort myself. I'm an upper-middle-class single person who has just faced the loss of their beloved pet. What do I do now? We think that under our side of the house, we would rather choose to clone the dog solely because, one, we don't see that there's anything wrong with it, and if side opposition comes up here, they'll have to defend every single form of domestication there is. And secondly, about how this is perfectly within the interest of me as an upper middle class person, and also within the rights of myself, and how this is better for my well-being, which we think should be the metric of this debate, how this is for the well-being of me, of this person, of this individual, and how it does serve my interests, right? So firstly, a few layers of characterization before I get into my arguments, right? So what is the world that this person, or that I live in, right? We think that one, as the info slide already states, that we are upper middle class, meaning to say that we can afford this, and we think that government has the fiat. No, thank you. The government has the fiat to be able to afford to clone the dog. Secondly, how we're a single, I would assume, working individual. So this is to say that one, we live alone, that we work a 9 to 5, regular 9 to 5, and that we are likely to be like quite lonely or like not have a necessarily regular support system that we can depend on every day or go home to. Therefore, this dog was that source of fulfillment, was that source of like emotional connection that we can walk home to, that we can go home to and find comfort in, right? So we think that without this dog, without this pet, without this support system, that this individual is more likely than not to now be very lonely, very distressed, very empty, and now live in a world that's very isolated, right? And we think that especially when the death of this pet, of this beloved animal was so sudden that we never really had the time to process or never really had the time to put in place like the checks and balances or to find comfort in other individuals or to find like to prepare emotionally even for the death of this dog. And we think that because of that it's within our rights and it's justified for us to clone this dog in the first place, right? But firstly, as to why people have pets in the first place, we think that pets serve as a form of like sense of purpose for individuals, especially when there is no one else that you can come home to or no one else for you to like talk to about your life, your daily life regularly, right? We think it gives you this sense of purpose when you, I'll take it later, when you are able to feed it, when you're able to care for it, when you're able to talk to it, when you're able to like cuddle with it in bed before you sleep, right? We think that having a pet is like having a companion that's with you all the time. And this is better for you in the sense of your mental health, in the sense of your life fulfillment, and it's better for you in the sense of your own stability and your own functionality as a person living in such a chaotic world, right? So we think that because of this, that our first argument on how we better protect the well-being of this individual how we better protect the well-being of this individual stands. Because we think that one, we're able to prove to you why having a pet is like emotionally fulfilling and makes life more bearable for this individual. But why exclusively cloning this pet or cloning this dog is so important, right? It's because one, this dog is already your dog technically, right? We would assume that the dog that you clone is the same dog that you had before, meaning to say that it has the same traits, it has the same personalities, and it has the same mannerisms. Yeah.
Considering how genetic and the genetic lottery decides about how the dog will be different in some personality and traits, how do you ensure that the dog is the exact same personality with the exact same traits?
We think that it's more likely that the dog that we clone has the same exact traits compared to a dog that you either picked up on the street or a dog that you chose to buy from like a pet store, right? We think that there's more guarantees in place when you choose to clone your dog for this dog to be the same dog that you got before, right? But continuing, we think that when you've already established like an emotional connection with this said dog, that once you clone this dog, once you get a new dog, that it wouldn't be the same as what your old dog was like, right? We think that you would have to go through like this entire learning curve and this entire like process of trying to understand the way that this dog behaves and what this dog likes, right? And we think that you're more likely than not to continuously compare this dog to the dog that you had before, and you wouldn't be able to show the same love that you have for this dog, show the same love that you had for your last dog for this dog. Okay. So we think that because of that there's an exclusive benefit for both, like for the individual to have cloned this dog, because of the sense of one, not having to go through this entire like comparing and all this like learning and all this process of maybe this dog is too violent, or maybe this dog is too aggressive, or maybe this dog like poops everywhere. We think that when you have that, it's so much easier for you to like just go through your life. But secondly, right, why it's still better for the well-being of our house is because we think that if you don't have this dog, or you don't have like this sense of support system, one, that you wouldn't be able to have that these individuals don't have time for a brief period. No, thank you. Don't have time for a brief period because, as we've said, they're upper middle class. Therefore, we think that you're more likely than not to have a better time or have an easier time going through this if you have like said dog, right? And we think that it's much harder for you to, one, either obtain a new dog for the reasons I've stated before, or to like find people who are suddenly like find a boyfriend or find a girlfriend who are suddenly like so readily available for you, because that's just unfeasible, right? And we think that when we're talking about going through grief and we're talking about going through life, and you need someone by your side or like a companion to go through like life with you, or to come home to, we think that having a pet is so much more reliable and so much more consistent, so much more constant than having to like go out and meet a friend, or having to like go to like a different state to visit your parents, right? Because we think that the unique difference of having a pet or having like an animal companion by your side is that they're always going to be there for you, and it's so much easier to be there, like for them to be there for you, right? And we think that because of that, the side proposition has already proven to you why, one, it's so important and so necessary for this individual to have a dog, but specifically why it's so important for the dog to be a clone of the dog before. And we think that because of all the reasons we've said, that we're so proud to propose.
Hi, I'm Al-O, Shira.
Start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The beauty of life itself is the fact that you know that one day that your friends will die, that your pets will die, your parents will die. That's the reason you cherish. That's the reason you develop. And that's the reason you become a better person in the society. In my speech today, I'll go through a few layers of go through a few rebuttals, set up argumentation. First, let's go through a few rebuttals, right? Number one, understand that actions are irreversible on side of government, right? So the fact that they won't have accountability, which is something they're trying to push towards, right? Accountabilities happen on both sides, right? The fact that when they're able to clone a little dog, the fact that they know that these actions are irreversible. So if I accidentally kill my dog again, sure, I will have another $1 million, or let's say a few $100,000 to actually buy back another dog, right? But the issue is the affection that you have with this dog is different. Understand the characterizing, understand the infos that I just said, right? That these dogs will still have a little difference, right? The fact that number one, totally the genetic mutation happen, genetic variations happen. So the animals or the dogs won't have the same genetic order, maybe, and let's say even if it had the same traits, it wouldn't be 100% the same of the traits, right? So that means you always be more comparing yourself, which is able to rebut government's argument of saying that you be comparing more with these new dogs that you get, right? So I tell you that it's false because of these mutations because of these variations. And what happens is that if you see a dog, if I clone a dog back, right, this dog will have a little slight change, which is able to be more comparing and more hurt on the outside, because you think about the old memories of your old dog or the previous one that have died, that's having you more trauma and more hurt on your side, right? Now let's go to the second point of rebuttal, right? Sorry, the second point of rebuttal, right? Which is Gov tells us that, no support system, right? Understand family and friends still there, right? Understand the opposition still have yet to use the money that they have spent on the clone, so we can say that we were able to use the money on number one, therapy, number one, going on a vacation. Understand that there are other coping mechanisms than bringing back when doing something immoral by using another object or using another animal, which is a whole new life, to grieve your own immoral actions and your own irresponsible actions. Number three, understand that protection. Understand Gov tells us that you'll be a workaholic, right? You wouldn't have time to actually be able to create new feelings for a new animal, or you wouldn't have time to make new affections, right? We tell me that this is false. Why? Understand that when you have a dog, you're more likely to not be a 9 to 5 worker, or not be likely to actually spend your whole day at the office, right? Why? Because the fact that you have not die from starvation is the fact that you actually have time to take care of the dog. You have to actually foster affection. That's what is creating dog. I'll take it up before my arguments, right? Now let's go through a few layers of setup. Right? Number one, let's go through the before I go to my setup. Let's call the mechanism, right? Another thing we still have the fiat to build therapy, to go to vacations, to buy food. I know what the coping mechanism is, but you still have to fight the coping mechanism, right? If you want friends, you go to find your friends. If you want family, you couldn't go to family. If you want to go have trauma dump on your friends, go ahead, I'm not stopping you. Let's go to two layers of framing, right? Number one, $100,000 or like whatever money that you use to clone a dog is still a large amount of money. It's not like 2 ringgit or 5 ringgit where I'm able to buy a whole new dog or clone a whole new dog just for it, right? So it's still a amount of money for upper middle class, right? The money could be spent for other things, right? Number one, investing in your business. Number two, stocks. Number three, family. Number four, property. All these things are still needed money, and I'm really willing to spend all this money on that thing instead of cloning a new dog, which is something that's very immoral. Number two, now you cannot say that the grief onset of government cannot say that the grief is very extreme to the point that you need a new dog in order to continue to live, right? We tell you that cherished things are cherished because of our. Another thing we cherish things because we know the fact that it's irresponsible. I said my opening line already. The fact that I cherish something is because I know that one day you'll die. So you understand that accountability happens on both sides, right? And understand that the dog died is kind of my problem. It's kind of you as the actor's responsibility to do so, right? If you take care of your dog well, why would the dog get hit by a car? The fact that these are all your point of responsibilities and these are all your problems, right? And I think let's say best case scenario where you take God's scared and the dog suddenly flies out the window and gets hit by a car, like some animation stuff, right? We tell you that this is even if it's happening, you still have to learn to let something go. The fact that you as a person develops because you let go of things that get passed behind you. Now let's characterize, right? Number one, actors are most likely irresponsible, right? Because they are most likely the reason why their dog dies. Number two, the incentive to spend money somewhere because that you are upper middle class. You are not Bill Gates, you are not Elon Musk, you don't have $1 million to push out of your pocket every day to buy Twitter or something. You don't have the money to do so every day, right? Number two, what does this cause? Is that you're more likely when the animal dies. If you buy a new animal, you are more likely to incentive to buy a new dog or clone a new dog, because then you know that the money I buy or the money I spend is able to make a new dog, which is something that I have incentive for, thus making you go and more, making you more and more poorer and making you spend more and more money. Understand that the dog does not understand your affection because the dog in itself is still, when you redo it, it's an infant, so you won't have the affection, right? You might have the affection towards the dog, but the dog might not have the affection towards you. We tell you that the actions are no longer accountable, because cherished, and genetic variation happens, right? Before I go to my first argument, any few words? No? 3, 2, 1. Like engagement for that. Now, tell you the first argument to tell you is that it's immoral to utilize a living human being to soak up your grief, right? You want constant memories, right? Understand the principle of this here. When you spend this much on a day, it's inevitable that underlying reasons is a place to do so, right? These animals that we kill, or these animals that we accidentally die, we still have a form of grief. And the fact that we have to cope with this grief and not to bring them alive, it's something very immoral, right? We think that the actor will do it for, let's say, for reasons, right? So what are the reasons that we think the actor will do it for, right? Number one, to run away from their grief and utilize this dog as a way to soak up their prior grief and grief even when the dog has no understanding or memories, right? So when the dog has completely no reason, completely just spawn that, you have to try, what happens is that you find the form to grieve it, right? You find the form to soak up all your tears with it when he has no idea why he's that, because all he knows is that he was born one day from a lab, and that's what he has idea. Number two, you can't start a new fresh dog, right? Because you associate this clone dog with the previous dog that you own, right? The physical relationship and the memories of you with them is still there. But after that, they don't have the love against you, right? You still have to foster new relationship, right? The dog is still going to be very a stranger to you. The dog is going to be a stranger to you, but you are going to be affection to him. So it's going to be you still have to bond and continuously bond the relationship back. And it's impossible to disassociate your memory, just making you stuck in it, right? Why is it important? Number one, it's immoral to utilize a living being with no prior knowledge as a way to soak up your grief. Because you then never know that a person is always stuck in this stage of denial, right? You will keep thinking that as long as this animal is alive, I'm able to be happy, which is something that is completely false. Number two, you have less accountability and less responsible for your actions because even though I kill my dog, no worries, I have the money to buy another dog, which is something that's unlikely to happen because you're going to go to that, or you're going to go to more, let's say going to hurt your pockets more. We tell you what the impacts here, right? Number one, it's immoral to do this because animals. Number two, less accountability and responsibility to actions. If you want a world of a better place for animals, set it off.
Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think side opposition is a little crazy for coming up here and saying that all of a sudden it's my fault for killing my dog because my dog randomly got run over by a truck. Number one, we say that this person obviously cares for their dog because if they even want to clone it in the first place, they obviously want and care for this dog, right? And second of all, I don't understand how is it all of a sudden this person's responsibility for their dog randomly getting hit by a truck, right? Because you can care for your pet so far. You can only give so much care for your pet so far to the point that things randomly just happen and just randomly passes away one day. This is not this person's fault, right? Second of all, they come up here and they say that, oh, this dog might be different genetically and there's some slight changes. Okay, my first figures already rebutted to this, right? The slight change is so much better than having a new completely dog that doesn't even know who you are, that looks completely different. That's probably like black compared to your brown dog, etc. Right? We say that the only harm that side opposition comes out of this is saying that, oh, it results in you being hurt and you relive your trauma. I don't understand how that is true because I think it's even worse that you don't have the dog that you always had, right? My first figures are spoken later. Right. Second of all, they tell you that they have a counter mechanism that is family and friends or like therapy to help fix grief because you have enough money to do so. Number one, let's go back. My first figure already told you that this debate, the two metrics of the debate that we decide on is number one, which side is in the best interest of the woman, right? We already tell you that as much as yes, these are correct options, these are like viable options, but at the end of the day, we have to look at the best interest of the person, the best interest of the person who has this dog, and the best interest of the person who has this dog is obviously to get her dog back, get their dog back, right? We say that this person genuinely loves and cares for their dog. This person is so emotionally attached to this dog. They wouldn't want to go another way because all they want to do is get the dog back and to have this dog back in their life, right? I'll go more on that later. Then number 3, they tell us that having a dog means you have time to take care of the dog. But I already explained to you, you can only care for the dog so much to the point that one day they just randomly run out of your house and get hit by a truck, right? Like, there's things that are unpreventable, death is unpreventable and in any way that you can't just make sure it doesn't die, right? Now moving on to their main argument, right? The first layer of analysis is that all of a sudden 100k is expensive and you can spend it on your business or like you did this to yourself, right? This is basically what they say in their main argument. Number 1, rebuttal to this is that if 100k we agree that 100k is expensive, but in the incentives of this woman, they probably don't care how much it is. They don't care how much it is to get their dog back because they're so emotionally reliant on this dog, right? But we say that even if it's expensive, they will do it anyway. Second of all, they say that you can like spend it on your business and buy stocks. First of all, this is probably not in the interest of the woman because all they care is about their dog. This dog is the dog that makes them the people they are today. This dog is the dog that made them able to even live today, right? Then they give us 2 principal arguments on how it's immoral to do this and there's no accountability for the person to learn from their actions. Number 1, I don't understand how these principles actively affect the person because in my opinion, all these principles can be just solved by using our solution, by just cloning the dog, right? Like we say that although it's immoral and there is no accountability, we say that it doesn't matter. Because number 1, there probably is accountability. The person probably feels really, really bad that they killed the dog. Their dog died. And like second of all, like even if it's immoral, I don't see a practical harm that like does anything because like principles don't fix your feelings, right? Before I move on to my argument, yes.
Considering how when you clone your dog, you actually reverse your actions, then how are you able to prevent the lack of accountability and responsibility on your side?
We say that accountability doesn't matter at the end of the day because you are still sad that your dog died and I don't understand why accountability matters, right? Like your dog died, what are you supposed to do? Like pray that it comes back? Like if it died, it died. What else can you do about it, right? Moving on, right? Let me give you 2 key parts of framing. Number 1, we tell you that this person obviously relies on the dog a lot. Because why does this person even have a dog in the first place? Because they're probably really busy working, or even if they have enough time to take care of the dog, they are a busy person who is single, who has no one in their house. And we say that it is horrible for this person to come back to a home that is absolutely empty and live alone forever, like especially when they've been emotionally reliant on this dog. We say that being emotionally reliant shows that this person needs this dog to continue their daily activities. This person needs this dog to wake up every day because coming back alone is extremely harmful and horrible because you will never feel a sense of love in any way and this person needs this dog to feel that love. That's why we say that it is in the interest of the person, in the interest of the actor to dog, even if there's slight differences, even if this dog barks a different way, right? Like, also, slight opposition also brings up a fact that all of a sudden the dog doesn't know who you are and the dog is a stranger to you and you have to make friends with him again. I don't understand how that is true in the first place, right? We say that the dog will obviously know who you are, the dog can see you, right? It's not that all of a sudden if they're cloned, they're going to be a puppy again and completely like dementia, right? We say that that is not true, but even if it is true, right? Even if the dog doesn't remember you anymore, we say that it's 10 times better than finding a new dog that doesn't even know who you are and looks completely different. Because at least when you see a dog that even if he doesn't remember you, you know who he is, you still feel the emotional connection, you still feel that this dog is there for me and this dog is still alive at least and I can cry to this dog whatever I want, right? So why is our case what exclusive benefits that our case bring you, right? We said number one, we said that only this dog can give this person a sense of comfort that they need. We said that this dog has probably saw them cry, saw them at their worst, saw them at their best. This dog has been through everything with this person, and this person is so emotionally attached to this dog that without this dog, they probably won't even be able to live with their daily activities. Yes, grief can be gotten over with, but we say that in the interest of this person, they probably don't want to grieve because they don't have, number one, they either don't have time to grieve, or they just don't want to go through that process of grief where we don't believe there is a harm in not going through that process of grief, right? We tell you that only on our side, we can give you this sense of comfort that side opposition cannot bring you because they decide to bring you a new dog or that they say that the dog is different, right? Number two, we say that our side is the only side that can make this person our side is the only side that can better able to maintain the well-being of this person. Because we say that this person needs this dog to maintain her well-being as stressed my first speaker and me, right? We tell you that this dog is the companion of this person, and we say that living alone is horrible, and we say that this person needs this dog to come home to every day to continue their daily activities, right? So in summary, we tell you that we win on the metric of which side is better able to serve the interests of women and which side is better to maintain the well-being of the person, right? And side opposition has to bring out exclusive harms on their side to even win this debate in the first place. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just gonna get his stuff.
Stop right after.
Okay. Wait a second, I just knew he always verbally pronouncing him. So what's that? Panel, don't believe the white wool pulled over your eyes by side of proposition. The only thing that it gave to you in today's debate was a few flimsy arguments with low impacts. First of all, few calls to one side of proposition there. What did they give us in today's debate? First of all, they tried attacking our mechanism and framing, and then after claiming about how so emotionally reliant on that. First of all, call out on their first argument, which is die in the first place. Because do you know, if you cared so much for the dog and did everything right, why would the dog still get hit by a truck, especially before you came home? I don't think that it is logical in the same sense. And do you know that they try to claim about how our principal argument never even materialized in the first place? However, I already gave you two things then about the principal impact and how it affects the person. One, considering how your actions are no longer irreversible, this means then that whatever you do, whatever actions you have are reversible, which means that the person will always seek the easiest option way out, the easiest opt out, and that will always be cloning their dog. What does this mean? That means the person will never become a more and more accountable and responsible person. Two, this then means that the person will actually never grow as a person and learn to live with guilt. Three, that means that then when the dog dies, because they're so emotionally attached, no thank you, that means that I'm able to accept the fact that the dog is dead, and this is going to be even worse. Do you know that inconsistencies when it came out in their speech? Because do you know that they said about how suddenly I'm so emotionally reliant on the dog that I cannot let go. However, do you know if they do this, they fall into a certain trap due to the fact that now they have to enter the sunk cost fallacy. Now that the actor is so emotionally reliant that they will never get past their grief and everything. I think this is an exclusive harm on their side that would need to take down, considering how when you are so emotionally reliant, that means when you actually finally no longer have the funds to actually clone your dog when you retire, that means then the impact is going to be so much worse rather than getting help now and actually getting over it then. I think then that they claim about how they retire the dog and everything. However, I'd like to ask a question. Did the dog ever consent to cloning? I think that this is a form of animal abuse then, because the dog never consented to you to even actually clone it in the first place. And do you know, they try to say about how we are supposed to protect domestication and defend it. However, don't let this burden push that away so simply. If they kept the dog, that means they already support domestication then. So what happens is that proposition and opposition have equal hands on terms of domestication. They can't burden push this. Then after that, they claim about how actually this is gonna have their memories and after they're still gonna love it. However, I do want to know that they have contradicted the motion in itself. Because do you know, as said already, when you clone the dog, it comes out as a puppy. It doesn't have the memories, which means that no matter how much you treat it or whatever thinks it is, it doesn't understand why you're treating it like this. It has no prior knowledge, which means that it's unable to actually understand or accept your affection. And so what happens is that there are arguments about them claiming about how you actually don't feel a sense of love towards the dog and the old new dog, right, that you have compared to old dog. It's actually relatively simple to take down. We think that when you finally get over it, that is only when you can have a healthy relationship. Because when you're no longer suddenly so reliant upon one certain dog and are able to grow as a person and understand the concept of mortality, if the dog is really so important to you, then how about people who are more important? Your family members, your relatives, people who are worth more than the dog and matter to you more, the same parents who gave birth to you. If that were to happen, then what would dog do? They would just clone the parents? I don't think so. Then this leads me into my argument, which then is the day of breaker, about how letting them go and acceptance is a huge major part of this today's case. Why is this true then? Because what happens is that actor already has guilt and grief. Letting them someone go and accepting it is actually developing as a person. When the dog dies, you understand that hey, it is sometimes my fault and I need to get over it. And so what happens is that when you don't deny, when you don't return to the easy opt-out, that is the only way that the actor can truly grow that. And so the impacts then are simple. Because what happens is that you actually become happy when you no longer are so emotionally reliant on the dog. It's your only source of happiness. And even then we see that there are still other counterfactual methods such as having a hobby, having friends, actually making friends at the workplace. I think that is not exclusive to their side, that they're able to co-opt the benefits of happiness. I think that long term we win. Because what happens is that we create more support structures and then after that reduce our reliance on the dog and actually have new pets who are able to cherish that. hit by another truck. Because what happens is that they never learn from their mistakes, they never take care of their dog, and they're always neglecting the dog and irresponsible because they never learn and all their actions are reversible. So what happens is that way that is simple. It only has two major benefits that is mitigated already. One is short-term happiness, and however, then after that they get three major harms that are exclusive to that. One, less accountability and responsibility, which makes them not grow as a person. Two, they don't cherish life because their actions are reversible, which means that they don't cherish the life of their pet because they know if it dies, I can always actually clone it again, and they get no fulfillment because they're always so reliant on the dog. Whereas on outside, we are growing this person, more accountable and responsible, vice versa, happy, and we grow and actually obtain more support structures so that we are no longer reliant on the dog. If you want to support the world, but the actor is happy, side to side opposition.
Let's get into a few about. First of all, they talk a lot about how being emotionally attached to a dog is very harmful and how if you continuously clone the dog, you'll never really process your grief. We think that this operates under two assumptions. One, that you are going to continuously clone the dog every time that it dies. And secondly, I think it goes under the assumption that the actor that we're talking about here is a rational person, which I'll get into later. First of all, we think that there's nothing, when you're emotionally attached to a dog and you do want it again, we think that they can't work on the assumption that we will continuously clone the dog just because we already characterize this person's life as at the moment they're single, they're upper middle class, and they work a lot, they don't necessarily have the time to be doing all of this alternative stuff that they want to do, right? And we think that being emotionally attached isn't necessarily bad, but also that their arguments aren't necessarily exclusive to why you shouldn't clone your dog, more so why you shouldn't get a new dog. Because when government talks about cloning a dog, right, the thing that we talk about is the fact that genetically it will be kind of similar to the dog. When they brought this up, they said that, oh, there's going to be differences, it's not going to be the same, they're not going to recognize you or know you. And we think that, I think it doesn't really matter, it's not really relevant whether the dog knows that it's you or not, because your previous dog also didn't consent to being your dog. We don't understand the argument of this clone dog didn't consent to being cloned when I'm not sure your previous dog that died in a truck crash consented to being your dog in the first place, right? But also that, we think that in this actor's mind, right, they are riddled with grief, so much so that they will want to clone their dog. And grief is kind of impractical, which means that even if this dog, I know my previous speakers talked about how this dog can be genetically similar, but we think that even if it isn't genetically similar, I think the grief inside this actor, right, tells you that it is enough that you know that there's a part of that dog, that part of your old dog that is still in this dog, that makes it so the incentive is that I still want at least a part of that dog to still be in this new dog, even if it isn't genetically exactly the same or personality-wise exactly the same. We think that this actor, they feel to consider that sometimes grief doesn't make your actor necessarily rational, and that when we talk about spending money on your investment or your friends and family, that this actor is a single adult working, and that the relationship between a human and a pet and a human between friends and family is completely different. Meaning to say that just because this person believes that cloning their dog is okay, doesn't necessarily mean that they believe that cloning their parents or friends is also okay. And opposition cannot make that claim without linking it to why that's the same, because the relationship, all those relationships are completely different and operate in different ways, right? So they also talk about accountability. They say about how if you continue to not be responsible for the fact that your dog got hit by a truck, then it means that you will never grow as a person. You will never be accountable for when you don't take care of your dog. We think that this isn't necessarily true, but also it doesn't necessarily matter. Why isn't it true? It's because the way that the dog died is specified in the info slide. It got hit by a truck. It's not like it died from malnutrition. It's not like it died from cancer. No, thank you. It's not like you were being irresponsible to not take care of the dog. I think both sides can concede to the fact that this dog is taken care of. But even if it wasn't, we don't think that just because now you have neglected the dog, right? That it is in your interest as the actor to not want to clone your dog, to have that sense of closure and comfort because you want to grow as a person or you want to move on. Because grief makes people do really impractical and irrational things, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We just believe that in the interest of the actor, this is the thing that they would do, and it's fine that they do it because of the comfort and closure and emotional support that this dog could offer.
Right?
Yeah.
Considering how proposition has never engaged you, you're only delaying the inevitable. What happens when you run out of funds and actually have to deal with the fact that your dog died instead of cloning it over and over again?
But I already mentioned that's under the assumption that we're going to continuously clone the dog, because at the present moment, right, you are a single adult who just lost their dog. If your dog lives again for another 5 years, who's to say you haven't found a partner or you haven't lived with your parents that when the dog does die, you wouldn't want to clone it again? Right now, the debate takes place right now when your dog has passed away, not in the future where you will want to continuously clone the dog. But even if that was true, you still haven't proven to us why that is an incentive for you to continuously clone the dog, because the life circumstances might be different in 5 years, 6 years when the dog has continued living or has died by then, right? So, okay, clashes. First of all, the principle of the person. I already talked about this in my rebuttals, but they talk about how the principle of the person is to hold themselves accountable, be responsible about their grief and how they didn't take care of the dog. But Thai government tells you that we don't think that this is necessarily relevant just because cloning, just because they haven't necessarily proved to us the link of because your dog got hit by a truck, it means that I didn't take care of it, but also that my best interest is to have this sort of closure and comfort and this sense of purpose as a single adult. Having this dog just means my life is so much better. And the fact that it died so suddenly, right? It's not that it died from any sickness, it got hit by a truck. Means that I still haven't had time to process this grief. And if having this dog means that I can live a better life, I can work better, I'm able to actually have a healthier mindset when it comes to my actual relationships, like family and friends and everything, then so be it. And cloning this dog just means that I'm better catering towards my grief by saying that this dog at the very least has a part of my old dog in it. And we think that we win on this clash just because it is in the interest of the adult, but also because in general, opposition hasn't claimed to what impacts it is or why it's so important to become a better person or take yourself accountable, other than having that comfort and closure in order to functionally live your life as this person. And we also think that they make a lot of assumptions and claims that they don't necessarily analyze, or just a few assertions that just because they say it, judges, doesn't necessarily mean that it's true or that they explained it in any way. We think they still haven't engaged on the fact that grief is something that my previous tutor said that grief is something that is kind of irrational, and the fact that you are allowed to be emotionally attached to your dog, and that the dog's consent or the dog's consciousness doesn't really matter when all dogs, regardless of the clone, don't have that same type of consciousness. Thanks. I think insofar as the government cannot prove to you why is it that after cloning your dog, you're suddenly going to be so happy, and how you're going to sustain after your clone dog dies is what happens next. They don't prove this to you, they lose just the bait. Couple of strategic observations then. First, if government wants to push on well-being, they also have to prove to you how is it that they're able to counter the burden of physical well-being. You're spending 100K to clone your dog that isn't necessarily similar. It's a puppy. You don't have the same, the dog doesn't have the same emotions and the same feelings as your own dog. We think that in this case, you're going to spend as much money and as much time, but you're not even getting the well-being that you actually need. Our counterfactor completely solves this issue because firstly, with that 100K, you are able to afford therapy, and second of all, if you cannot afford therapy, you can also look for your parents and friends with that 100K, even if you are in Malaysia and your parents are in America, right? This can still happen. You're still able to find cover in any other way instead of you cloning your dog, which is kind of animal abuse. I'll talk about that later. But second of all, I just want to note that they have already conceded to our side of the house. They say that we don't necessarily prove to you why is it that after cloning this dog and that clone dog dies, we're going to clone another dog to clone the dog, right? I want to firstly note that given that they have constantly claimed that this actor has the incentive and is really emotionally attached, they cannot prove to you why is it that they would clone the dog another time or multiple times by the end of the day, right? You cannot just get out of the pain by cloning your dog, and you're going to spend much more money and time. The way here is then very simple. The time and money you have spent is irreversible. Are you really going to spend that much time? No, thank you. You're not going to get back the time that you have spent, and you're still able to use the time to do other things that can benefit you as a person by the end of the day. And second of all, that if you still want to push on well-being, in reply, I want to firstly note that you can still totally get a new dog with less money, not 100K, maybe 1K or 10K. That still works because that's a new dog, and cloning your new dog means that you're starting new and freshly. You cannot start fresh because insofar as when the clone dog has already it's same shell, the inside is already different. The issue here is that you are still attached. You're going to say like, oh my god, why is the clone not acting like my old dog, and so on and so forth. This means that you are never able to start fresh by the end of the day. Under the side of the house, the actor is constantly in denial phase and they can't get out. What's better under our side of the house is we're able to let the actor get out. Why is this best in the actor's incentive? My first speaker has already told you that this actor most likely wants to grow out of it, right? We know that a truck accident, hitting your a truck crashing on your dog is very tragic in the first place. What this means is that this actor firstly has not done that much to actually be responsible for their dog, and second of all, they still need to get out of the denial phase, otherwise they need to keep spending much more money in order for them to get their clone dog once more. Two questions I'm going to talk about in this debate. First, which side is actually better for the actor and on actor incentives, and second of all, on what even happens after your clone dog dies, right? On the first thing then, on which side is actually better for the actor. Government then pushes to you on emotional well-being because you need your dog to live because because the actor is single. I want to firstly note that how our counterfactual can still assure the well-being of the actor by the end of the day. But second of all, why do we think that cloning the dog isn't actually the best option and also not in the best interest for the actor? It's because first of all, this dog is a puppy, not a dog. If you are having a 9-year-old husky, they're not cloning the 9-year-old husky for you. They're cloning a 1-month-old husky for you or something like that, right? You are not starting fresh because the looks are completely the same. The inside is the one that is not different. By you actually cloning your dog, this means that you're actually spending and wasting your time and your 100K just for you to even feel that tiny little sense of happiness because I finally get my dog back. What's worse under their side of the house is then they lose out on the long-term benefit. Sure, they can get the short-term benefit, we don't mind, but in the long term, this actor is constantly being in a mindset of, oh, I can clone the dog, and so if my dog actually dies in another truck accident or falls off from the window and gets hit by a car again, they can still clone the dog because they think that, oh, I have the money to do so, why can't I, right? What's the comparative then? I think it's very simple. Under their side of the house, they still constantly spend much more money and they cannot get out of the denial phase by the end of the day. What's better under our side is that we can let this actor get out of the phase and actually get real well-being than you actually getting your clone dog, right? I think there's like some points of weight that they're actually able to win on. That firstly is on accountability. I think that the only sense of accountability that they actually try to kind of push is that, as the actor, you get your clone dog, then you're able to take care much more of your dog, you're able to take care of your dog much more, right? But I think that then the issue with this is that, okay, but what about your dog that has died? Has they even consented to them being cloned? And also, you as the actor has already been irresponsible. Even though a truck accident is an accident, even though that's an accident, but I want to firstly note that it's not going to be just crashing into a truck, right? If you're walking your dog by the park, how is truck going to come in? You probably not leash your dog. Or maybe at home you didn't close your window and then your dog jumps off the window. This is what happens. You are not responsible. The issue, how are we able to solve this then is that we don't get your clone dog. We'd rather find many more other means because firstly, we're able to get more money, and second of all, the actor does not have to constantly stay in the denial phase of them actually being sad, actually grieving for the deceased dog and having and also spending that much of money which they might not even able to put food on the table by the end of the day, right? But second of all, I also want to point out how on our side of the house, this actor actually learns that it is actually in the actor, it's also in the incentive of the actor to actually care for their own well-being over their dog, but on their dog, right? This actor we have already proven to you that this actor would less likely would not want to trauma dump, and it's actually immoral for them to trauma dump on this clone dog by the end of the day, right? I just want to point out how they actually lose this debate as it holds 15 seconds left. But firstly, because our principle still stands, opposition, government still has yet to prove to you how is it that the principle of grief is actually that bad. But also second of all, as an actor and as a dog owner, you have yet to take enough responsibility and accountability for a dog. I think it's very clear that this debate goes to opposition. Thank you.
Thank you.
We just check this stuff. Well then, just gonna say this kind of funny reply that I've done. Right. What the dog do? The dog is what is most important in today's debate. And I feel that then, the proposition tried to actually claim about how they actually better fulfill the well-being, etc. However, I feel that it is important to do a few call-outs then on what happened in today's debate. You know how we still have the fiat to say that we still have money to actually use on hobbies, therapy, go see friends, make new friends, or even find a lover. I think that is what they fail to engage, because they then claim about how later on you may be able to find a partner, etc. However, I think that it is incredibly important to actually move on while you still have the chance. Because what happens is that they fail to engage with our principle in so far that whenever you clone your dog, you still remember that it is a testament to your irresponsibilities and your unaccountability to take care for it. I think that every single time you re-clone your dog, that is when you actually have to relieve your child. Do you know then the mitigation said by opposition web that has failed to mitigate our case there? Because they then claim about how they won't clone the dog in the future. However, I like to point out the major contradiction in their case and the major tension about how they claim at first that I'm so emotionally reliant on the dog that I can't actually get away with it or pricing that out my grief other than cloning it, and then suddenly say that now I conveniently actually say, hi, I'm going to actually not clone my dog, what's my clone dog? Guys, I think that then they need to be consistent with their case to even win the debate, because what happens is that if it was so easy to let that dog go later on, why not do it now? And not to mention, due to the fact that DPM then said about how they're so attached to the dog, why would it be as attached to the dog, the clone dog? What happens then is that if they claim that, hey, they're no longer as attached to the dog later on, then they don't love the dog as genuine, which then harms the case about how they actually first of all. Two, they spend more money. Three, they're no longer as happy because as same in contradiction, they no longer cherish the dog as much. Do you know that the fact that they have failed to weigh again and target and rebut our principle is a major flaw in their case? Because what did they actually try to say? They say that as in so far that you clone the dog and run away from your irresponsibilities and use the dog as a way to dump all your trauma, it is something that it is immoral and the actor shouldn't do that. I think that it is simple because they then claim and mitigated trying to say about how the dog didn't consent to being our pet. However, then I say that now you violated the dog's right 2 times. First of all, by getting it as your pet, and the second time by literally bringing it back to life instead of letting it rest in peace. And then after that, let's come down to way, simple way that let me provide you what proposition has given to you in the most charitable sense. What? They claim about how they get happiness. However, it's short-term happiness. I am unclear about how magnitude this happiness will be. Two, they claim about how they get fulfillment. However, at the end of their speeches, I am unable to actually understand how much fulfillment will actually be. But then we still have 3 exclusive parts at the end of the debate, even on the worst case. One, they have less accountability and responsibility because they're always running away from the mistakes. Two, they don't cherish the life of the dog because what happens is that they no longer care about the dog as much because what happens is that there are a multitude of factors that we have said. And so then we compare it to our side where we're actually able to grow as a person, become happy, get over the grief and become and develop as better as a person. I think that if you want to avoid where it's the incentive of an actor to become a better person and become more growth as character, side to side opposition.
has to concede to the fact that they don't necessarily have a case when they resort to accusing side government and the actor in question as being an abuser to their dog, right? Because we don't necessarily think that this is on any reasonable basis in the first place. It was an accident. You cannot be with your dog all the time. I'm a working person, right? So we think that every argument that is predicated on the fact that we're an irresponsible human being, that we have to take accountability for our actions, doesn't necessarily stand because it wasn't our fault in the first place that this dog passed away. Secondly, we think that one, on the point that they keep bringing up that we've already taken down from second speaker, right, on the point of spending irresponsibly, we've already talked to you about how our lives changed and the fact that this dog died was something that we weren't prepared for. But at the point at which this clone dog dies again, we think that it's fine and that we would have generally understood how to process our grief, or that we've generally understood, or we've generally found other support systems to rely on. But what they don't seem to understand is something that I said from my speech in the very beginning, right? That there's a distinction in having this clone dog. There's a distinction in having a pet as a companion in the first place, right? Because of the fact that we do not have the privilege to completely uproot our lives to move to America to see our parents. We do not have the privilege to completely uproot our lives and change our routines to get therapy, right? We think there's this unique distinction that they're not understanding, that these pets are a constant in our lives that are always going to be there, right? And we think that these pets are something that is specifically so important to us because they're always going to be there, right? We think that none of their points stand because of the fact that they choose to have the dog as the main stakeholder, right? Which animals generally cannot consent. And they say that, oh, we violated their consent twice. We think that now they're against the entire idea of domestication and the entire idea of having pets in the first place, which means you have to go all the way back to agriculture, to go all the way back to every single animal that we've ever domesticated for the point of human necessity, right? And we think that when we talk about what happens to the real main stakeholder, that side proposition has been prioritizing from the very beginning, the person, right? The person in question. We think that side opposition has been making many, many false assumptions, right? Choosing to accuse us continuously cloning, choosing to accuse us of abusing these animals, right? And we think that under our circumstances, we've already proven to you why we're better able to help this person, because even if it's not the same exact dog, and we can concede to that fact, there's still something uniquely similar with this clone dog that you cannot get in any other dog to the dog that you've had before, which is something that you hold on to, which is something that my whip already said, right? We think that under our sense of house, even if, right, we don't get to process this grief, that we're able to like maintain the constant of this person's life, and we're able to maintain the well-being of this person's life, right? Because it's not about the dog really, right? Because we're not hurting the dog. We're under the assumption that we're still feeding the dog, that we're still caring for the dog, that we're still like protecting the dog from harm, right? Because it was an accident in the very first place. So we think that if the dog's not harming anyone and the person, the main stakeholder, is like benefiting from this, that there's nothing inherently immoral about cloning this dog. Because we think that under our sense of house, what we're able to do is keep this constant there for as long as this person needs to process this grief. Like, keep this dog there for as long as this person needs until they find some other form of support system, until they find a boyfriend or find a lover. Because it's not that easy to actually just find a boyfriend or find a wife or someone to live with you for the rest of your life, right? And it's not that easy to like visit your parents for like months to process your grief. And it's not that easy to just like always reach out to your friends who also have their own lives. And it's more unfair and more immoral for you to trauma dump on your friends than it is for your dog, who generally doesn't understand what you're saying. It's fine, because for as long as you're able to care for this dog, show that you love it, what's the problem in trauma dumping on this dog or treating it as like some form of like object that you trauma dump on? Because you're still caring for it. In its eyes, you still love it. It's fine. So we think that under our worst case scenario, we still get the well-being of the person, the main stakeholder, and under their best case scenario, that they have to, like, their person has to raw dog life and like be unfulfilled for however long until they die. So that I'm really proud of this.
GG.